All right. Well, welcome to our library information session today. I am Sharon Duffy. I am the Research Services Librarian, and the title of my presentation today is Level Up Your Literature Search, PubMed and Embase Essentials. This is being recorded for future viewing. Anybody who registered online will receive the recording link and the slides after the presentation. All right. So here's a little overview of what we're going to cover today. I'm going to talk about different purposes of searching and how you might approach it differently, whether you're doing a research or a clinical application. The focus of today's is mostly about literature reviews. So I'm going to talk about those and the kind of search that you do for those. I'm going to touch on the differences between when you're searching in a database versus Google Scholar versus any of the AI tools out there, kind of compare and contrast their features. Then I'm going to do a live demo of a PubMed search and talk about ways to search with the mesh headline, mesh terms in Medline using Boolean operators. And then we're going to translate that search into Embase. So essentially the two databases we're going to cover today are PubMed and Embase. And then I'm going to talk about using limits and filters to refine your search. Okay. All right. So the goals of your searching. So when you're searching for clinical or research applications, you're going to have a different need and a different focus, and you may use a different tool. If you're searching for a clinical application, you're trying to support a patient care decision. You're going to be looking for information that's focused on somebody's treatment, diagnosis, patient outcomes, and you're going to be looking for evidence that you can immediately use to influence your clinical practice. So you need quick answers. So the good tools to use for that are going to be probably Dynamed and Clinical Key, and PubMed plays a role in that as well. If you're searching for research, you're going to have an entirely different focus, but you can use the same tools. You're going to be looking for information to support your scientific inquiry and your experimental design. You're going to be trying to understand the current status of the scientific landscape in your research area. Your goal is more to be comprehensive and do a thorough review of the existing literature. So you need depth of information. You're not looking for a quick answer. You're going to go a little deeper, get a bigger assessment of what's out there to move forward. So the tools you're going to use for that are going to be primarily databases, things like PubMed, Embase, Cinol, Web of Science. Those are some of the good biomedical and multidisciplinary science databases. All right. And even when you're searching for research purposes, you could even still have two different focuses. If you're doing a literature review, which is the focus of today's talk, you're looking to do a comprehensive survey of the existing literature on your topic. You're going to be looking to integrate various concepts and theories and maybe get some historical context. And you might be doing this to write an entire article. Maybe you're doing a literature review on as a submission as a manuscript, or maybe you're just using this information for a section of your article, such as your introduction or your discussion section or a research proposal. So you just need to, learn about your topic before you can proceed with your research. Now, this kind of literature review can be influenced by an author's bias because there's no systematic design to the search approach. You're just going to find articles, you're going to find what you're looking for, and you're going to move on. You're not looking at every single article. You're just getting enough to understand the current status of the research landscape. If you're doing a systematic or a scoping review, this in itself is a robust research output. Like that is your product. So you're going to use a more structured, transparent, and reproducible search method to eliminate that bias that I mentioned can happen with a literature review. You're going to be searching multiple databases in a very comprehensive, exhaustive way. And if you're doing this type of search, you're going to need to include a librarian. So this is a link here to our systematic review resource guide, and it includes a form where you can request in assistance from a librarian if you're doing this type of search, because you need to include a librarian to do that more exhaustive, thorough, deep literature search. The type of literature review I'm going to talk about today is great for learning about your topic and, getting enough background information, but it's not sufficient for a systematic or scoping review. Okay, so now we know why we're here. All right, so if you're doing a literature review, you need to establish the context of your field. You want to mainly avoid repeating studies that have already been done, or if they have been done, you want to look to see how they did it and maybe how yours is going to be different. You need to put it within the context of the broader scientific conversation. You might be looking for gaps in knowledge, so you can see where no experiments have been done or there's been conflicting results. So that helps justify why your research project is needed. And then to support your hypothesis, when you're going to perform research, you're going to have a research question, and to have good evidence to support it makes it a stronger outcome when you are complete. All right, now I'm going to talk about scholarly databases because that's what we're going to talk about today. So sometimes the purpose of a database can get lost in the current world of AI tools and new things on the marketplace. So let's talk about what a database is. It is a curated collection of journals. I like to think of it as kind of a box. And the databases are transparent. They will tell you what journals they're including, and then they will put the articles from those journals into their database. So it's very transparent, and it's kind of a closed set because they're telling you which journals they're including. All of those articles are indexed, meaning they are designed to be retrieved. Maybe they're adding some keywords or some headings to it, some index terms that make them findable. And it's important to note that no database in the world includes all the journals. Even in the biomedical landscape, you're going to need multiple databases to fully cover a topic. So Google and Google Scholar are technically not databases. They're search engines. They don't live in a box. They search the internet. And AI tools are not appropriate for research. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on my next slide. All right, so this chart kind of compares the different tools and why, hopefully helps you understand why some of them are more appropriate for research and some are not. So what is their content source? In a database, it's going to be that curated list of journals. Many times it's discipline specific. I'm focusing on biomedical. There's engineering ones out there. There's other sciences. Everybody has their own specialty. And then some are multidisciplinary and cover lots of sciences. And then, so Google Scholar is going to be much more broad. It's going to be academic focused, and it pulls from internet sources. So that's where it gets its stuff. And the AI tools, we just don't know. It's very mixed, and they don't really tell us. They might say they have agreements with publishers, but they don't tell us which journals they're getting from that publisher. They'll say, oh, we have an agreement with Elsevier. Okay, for the ones that we have to pay for, or just the open access ones. It's not clear. It's not transparent. Let's talk about the quality control of the contents. In a scholarly database, it's very high. They have strict indexing standards. All the records are going to look similar. They're treated the same. There's a lot of consistency. In Google Scholar, it's a little variable. And because it's pulling from their internet, some lesser quality articles can be retrieved. Not going to have those same high standards that a database would have. So could get some questionable things in there. And then in the AI tools, again, we just don't know. A lot of times it generates its outputs just based on patterns. That's how citations are sometimes hallucinated or not, they're not reliable because it's just kind of making stuff up essentially. So less quality. In the coverage depth, a scholarly database, it's going to be very deep. It's going to be discipline specific. Google Scholar is going to be, it's a little more broad, but definitely interdisciplinary because it doesn't have those barriers of being tied to one discipline. So if somebody publishes in a journal outside the core journals, you may be able to find it with Google Scholar. And again, with AI tools, we just don't know because they don't really tell us where they get all of their information from. In terms of the search, whether how easy it is to use or how good it is, in a scholarly database, the searches are very reproducible. All the search strategies can always be saved. They can be exported. They can be repeated. And that's a mark of of scholarly quality tool. They offer advanced searching. They have a lot of filters. There's usually a controlled vocabulary with some subject terms that make it easier to search. And then ease of use, you do need some training to maximize the use, but anybody can go in and at least start to get some articles. In Google Scholar, it's less reproducible because they just kind of use basic keywords and the outputs are based on the algorithm and the user's behavior. So I could run a search, somebody else could run a search. We may see different results based on our past activity. So that's less reproducible, but obviously it's very easy to use. In the AI tools, it's not reproducible because they're using some kind of algorithm that we don't understand. It does search with natural language, so people do like that they can just type thoughts in a question. So it is very easy to use in terms of getting articles, and it's very approachable. Your risk of misinformation is very low with a scholarly database because the journal articles that are in there are high quality. Google Scholar is going to be moderate because it could pull some questionable sources. And then AI tools could very much hallucinate, especially with citations. I should say that Google Scholar is a great place to verify a citation. So if you get a citation and you're not sure if it's real, I always just throw the title into Google Scholar and it will try to match it. And if I don't get an exact match, then I know okay, so Google Scholar is good for verifying a citation. So if I come across a citation and I want to kind of verify that it exists, throw the title into Google Scholar and it will do a good match. If you don't find it, it makes me kind of think that it's not a real article. So it is a useful tool for that. If you're doing a systematic review, you really have to use databases. That's really your only option. Google Scholar doesn't have the sufficient reproducibility. It is a useful tool. I use it after I do my database searches just to see if I find anything different because it does search from some different sources. And then AI tools are clearly not appropriate for high quality research purposes like a systematic review. Okay. All right, so if you're looking for some databases to get started, in the biomedical world, PubMed and Embase are your number one and number two. Those are ones I'm going to talk about today. And CINAHL, if you are in the nursing and allied health research, is also essential. So you have a top three. The main ones we use for multidisciplinary purposes are Scopus, Web of Science, and ProQuest. And then if you're looking for something a little more subject specific, SocIndex covers sociology, and APA Psych Info is great for psychiatric behavioral health type of literature. So this is a good dashboard of databases that we highly recommend and we use all the time. Okay, any questions about that before I jump into the PubMed search? Okay. All right, so let's talk about PubMed. So what is in PubMed? PubMed is also made up of multiple things. Its main component is Medline. So Medline is that box database. It is a defined set of journals. There's over 5,000 and they are rigorously selected for inclusion. They are indexed with what are called mesh terms, medical subject headings. I'm going to talk more about those later. And it makes up the majority of the PubMed database. PubMed Central is the next big piece, and it is the official repository for articles that present the results of research that are funded by government dollars. Anybody can submit to PubMed Central. So if you get money from the NIH to do your research and you don't publish in a Medline journal, then you would make sure that your results get put into PubMed Central through this repository. They also have a print collection of journals as well, and they're included. And then there's Bookshelf, but that's just books, and that's very small, so we're not going to talk about that. So PubMed covers a lot of different parts of biomedicine. They cover health policy. They get into the life sciences, so you'll see agriculture and plants and animals in there, vet med in there, medical education, and much more. So that's what you're searching when you're searching PubMed. You're searching more than Medline, but Medline is that premier database that meets the criteria that I talked about before. And then Embase is the other primary biomedical database. It has 99% of the Medline journals plus 3,000 different ones. So you definitely need to search both. It has a lot more extensive coverage for conferences. PubMed doesn't really cover academic conferences. So a lot of times people will present early findings in a conference and then later publish a journal article. So sometimes it's rare to see where you can get an early glimpse of activities. It's a lot more international, so there's a lot more global journals. If you're doing research on pharmacology or drugs or medical devices, Embase should really be your starting point because it is much stronger in that than Medline. And it's indexed with what are called entry terms. That's equivalent to the mesh terms. And this one is a product of Elsevier. All right, so now let's do our searching in PubMed. I have slides here that kind of are all screenshots, but I'm going to jump in and do a live demo. So if you're going to access PubMed, we always recommend going through our library website. If you're off campus, click on this link here on our library homepage to get connected first. That way you're connected with our library collection. All right, so before I jump in, our topic searching, this is what the homepage looks like. So you just start, you can see it's very easy to use. It's not intimidating. It looks like Google. You'll just type in your words, be as specific as possible. I don't recommend just typing in cancer. You'll want to put a few terms in there, maybe more than one concept. You don't have to worry about adding any ands or ors or punctuation. It'll give you some autocomplete features to help save you some strokes and make sure you don't misspell anything. And I do want to say that PubMed searches a lot more than just the words you type. And it's very transparent about what it will be searching. And that's what I'm going to show you in the demo. So jump in. All right. So our topic today is going to be music therapy for children with autism. So I'm going to jump into PubMed and I'm going to type in music therapy. So I can see right there. I can just type that in and I'm just going to hit search. There it goes. All right. Okay. So this is what the results page looks like, just to give you a quick overview of what you're seeing and some of the tools they offer. There are some filters here on the side. I like PubMed because it gives you a nice visual. You can see kind of when there was a lot of research activity over time. So if you wanted to like limit to the last 10 years, you can just apply a quick filter like that. You can also remove it. On this text availability, I generally recommend that if you're associated with our institution, you don't use this because we have access to a lot of full text articles. And so you really don't want to filter for that. Let our institution determine whether you have full text access, not PubMed. So I generally skip those. The other ones that are helpful are under article type. You can link to or limit to review articles or control trials. There's many options there. There's also some quick filters for language, humans, age groups. I will say, and I'll say this multiple times, that only the Medline articles in PubMed are going to be have these tags on them. So if I wanted to specify to an age group, I'm going to lose all the PubMed Central articles because they just don't have these tags. So be careful with using these because you could accidentally eliminate articles. There's also ability to remove preprints. I will say in PubMed, preprints are really well marked, so you don't have to worry about that too much. And if you only wanted to see those Medline articles, you could limit to that only. Okay. And just make sure that your sort is correct. Best match is the best one. You can sort by publication date or author name, but generally the default should be best match. The other thing you can do is you can email or save results. Some of these features you need to have a MyNCBI account. There's many ways to kind of connect with the MyNCBI. Orc is a good choice. I have a resource guide on this. It's linked at the end of the presentation that gives more information about how to connect. But you need that feature to use the email. The other one I like to use is the clipboard. This is just kind of a temporary storage. So if you're going through articles, you're like, oh, I want to look at this one or that one. This is like 8 hours of storage and then it disappears. Collections will allow you to store it for a longer time. And then you can send stuff to a citation manager like EndNote or Covenants. Okay. So let's look at an article because I want to talk about these mesh headings a little bit. and how to find other good articles when you find one that you like. So this is a systematic review about music therapy. Gives me the abstract, all the information about the article. And then two nice things that it offers are similar articles. So if I find one that is right on my topic, this will give me some other articles that has similar mesh terms, is on the same topic, maybe by the same authors. It's kind of like when you're in Amazon and it says, if you like this, you might like that. And usually they're pretty right. So this is a good place to look to find additional articles. And then the cited by is also useful because what this is this is telling me since this article was published in 2022, it has been cited by other articles. So if somebody cites this, I might be interested in their work as well. So it gives you a nice list of those that you can also click on and pursue. Now down here is the mesh terms. So this is good when you're exploring your topic, because once you learn the mesh term, you can find the other articles that are tagged with the same tag, and then you'll find things on the same topics. So I always like to come in here to see what kind of mesh terms are applied to this article so I can look for more. And in this case, it looks like music therapy is my mesh term. Okay, so now I want to go look at what PubMed searched. So now we need to go to the advanced search screen. So if you haven't been here before, it's not scary. It just has a few more windows. So I've already searched this today during my practice. But on these advanced search, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here on details. And this is kind of like looking under the hood. I'll make that a little bigger. So we can really see what it searched. It's very transparent. It's telling me exactly what it did. So if I don't like what it did, I can change it. So it mapped me to the mesh term for music therapy. I didn't tell it was the mesh term. It just did that. And then it also searched for the words I searched, music therapy, as separate words with an and the phrase music therapy in all fields. And when they say all fields in PubMed, they mean the entire PubMed record that we just looked at. So that whole record, it searched for music therapy. Great. So it found 11,000 articles. That's wonderful. Okay, and now, what should we do next? Now we're going to add in our autistic children. So to add a search term, I'm just going to type it right here. This is the same as if I was going back to the home page. I'm putting it in my query box, searching all fields, and letting it search. Okay, so it found 27,000 articles. We're going to go to advanced. And we're going to look under the hood again and see what it searched. So you can see it did a lot more mapping here. So we're going to look here for translations because we're going to see what it did with each term. So when I typed in autistic, it mapped it to the mesh term autistic disorder. I did not have to know that. PubMed knew that, and it says, all right, I gotcha. We're going to search that. Plus, it's going to took my word and put it in all fields. It took autistic and disorder. It took the phrase autistic disorder, similar like it did with music therapy. It did autistic, autistics, the plural, and autist, which is another form of the word. For children, it mapped it to the mesh term child, but then it also searched all forms of child, children, child's, children's, plurals, possessives, all those things without me having to tell it. So like I said, PubMed's searching a lot more than what I typed in. If I was doing a systematic review, I would also want to add words like pediatric and youth and student. But for a literature review, you're on the right path. You're going to see relevant articles because they're probably going to use some form of the word child if they're talking about children. All right, so that's great. Before we combine those, I want to jump back to my PowerPoint because I want to talk about mesh a little bit more so that you understand the value of this controlled vocabulary. So both PubMed and Embase have a controlled vocabulary thesaurus. And what this does is it gives some consistency to the language used in the literature. So whether I refer to it as autism and somebody else calls it an autistic disorder, that controlled vocabulary will pull those articles together and make sure I see them when I'm searching on that subject heading. So you get better search results because any article that's tagged with it, you will find no matter what word they use to describe it. Again, only the Medline articles are indexed with the mesh terms in PubMed. And it's just interesting to note that they used to be assigned by people, but now they're done by AI. And that's a good thing because there's no backlog. As soon as an article hits Medline, those tags are assigned very quickly and then made available for searching. So Medline and Embase have them. CINAHL has its own set of subject headings. Scopus and Web of Science do not. So when you're in those databases, you'll just have to do a keyword search. So just to show what you can learn about a term from its mesh information, there's a special mesh database. I have a link to it here. It's also always on the PubMed homepage, and there's a link called Mesh. And you can look at the mesh record and understand a little bit more about how it's treating your term, because you might want to use a broader term or a more narrow term. And it's helpful to know a little behind the scenes what it's doing with your term. So for music therapy, they give you a definition. You can do subheadings if you're only looking for a specific topic related to your term. Entry terms are synonyms. This one doesn't have any synonyms, so the only thing that you can type in to get it is music therapy. But you can see that it's kind of handled in 4 different types of categories within MESH. It's considered a therapeutic. It's a sensory art therapy. It can be part of patient aftercare and rehabilitation. And it can be part of behavioral disciplines and psychotherapy. So all of those different categories include music therapy. And this kind of helps explain and show, oh, maybe I want to be a little broader and use all sensory art therapies. So it's just good to know where your term is so you can make decisions if it's the best term for you. And then I just wanted to show the ones for autistic disorder in child. So there's a lot more synonyms that you could use for autistic disorder. If I typed in autism or these other syndromes, it would have mapped me to the same record, same mesh term. And you can see its hierarchy here. Child maps with children. And there is one subcategory that I could choose on preschool child if I wanted to only focus on that group. So again, it's helpful just to know what your other options are to make the best choices for your search. Okay, now we're going to do Boolean operators. Hopefully this is a review, but this is where we use and, or not to combine different topics. You would use or for synonyms. So any similar terms that name the same concept, this broadens your search. So when PubMed took music therapy and combined like the mesh terms with the keywords, they put them as together with an or. So it's anyway, whether it was with a mesh term or just as music therapy in the abstract, it would find my article. It broadens the search. And then once you have all those topics together or separated, then you can combine them together using and. So here you're telling it, I only want articles that talk about all of my topics together, and that's going to give you a much smaller slice of the literature. And then there's not. We generally don't recommend using that because you might accidentally remove a relevant article that happens to include one of your words. So we generally don't use that one. Okay, I'm going to walk through back in PubMed how to do that. It live. Okay, you can still see my screen, my Zoom screen. Okay. All right, so if you are in PubMed and you want to combine your searches, you have to click on these little 3 dots that don't really tell you what they do. The first one I want to use is for my music therapy. So I'm going to do add query, and that just puts it in my box. And then I take my second term, which was autistic children. And when I click on it, now I have more options. I can combine it with and or not. So in this case, I want and because these are different concepts that I want to combine with and I can hit search. And I have 141 results. So let's remember that number because the next thing we're going to do is go into Embase. All right, I'm going to jump back to my slides. If there's any questions about that before I jump into Embase. Okay. All right. So Embase, I'm going to walk through how to get there. You have to go through our databases link. and then click on the letter. You'll see our A to Z list. Click on E for Embase, and then that will take you there. What I want to show you, and this is a wonderful tool, it is essentially an easy way to search two databases for the price of one. They have a tool called their Query Translator, where you can take your PubMed search, literally copy and paste it, and it will translate it and run a very similar search in Embase. So this is a quick and easy way to cover two wonderful, good, comprehensive biomedical databases for just the cost of putting together your PubMed search. So that's what I'm going to show next. I'll show it live, but the slides are there if you want to do it on your own. Okay, so let's go back to our advanced search screen. Now, the one thing you do have to do is make sure you're grabbing the right search. So I've got my advanced search, my one that had 141 results, and I'm going to copy and paste this combined search. So it had all my music therapy terms that were linked together with the or, and then ANDed it with all of my autistic disorder and my child terms. And I'm just going to do a quick copy. Open up Embase. I'll get there through the library webpage. We go to databases. We go to E for Embase, and we choose it right there. Okay. On this home page, you're going to want to click on Query Translator, and you literally just paste it right in. So you add your PubMed query, just do a paste, and I say translate. And again, it is very transparent. It's showing me exactly what it did. And if I don't like it, I can just choose to delete it. So I can look on music therapy, and it says, okay, we translated the music therapy mesh term. If I didn't agree with it, I could remove it. Mtree is their hierarchy. And so you can kind of look here real quick, and you can see Mtree is a lot more extensive than mesh. So for music therapy here, I could even pick more specific ones if I wanted to be more specific with my subject heading term. So, and then my term information, it had some other synonyms I could use, gives me a definition. So it's kind of like the mesh record, but it's called the Mtree database right here. Okay, so let's go back to here. All right. If I wanted to remove it, I could just delete it as well. But it pretty much just took my search and did the exact same thing. Here's my autism. I could get a lot more specific here in under autism in Mtree. All right, but let's go look at the 507 results. So it was a lot more. And Embase will always give you more results for several reasons. One, it is searching the full text of the article. So that's different than PubMed. PubMed is only searching the PubMed record, the citation. Embase, it's the whole thing. And they do a lot more extensive tagging and adding keywords to their articles. So you're always going to get more. Plus, it has more articles because it does conferences and it just has more journals. Okay. So just to orient ourselves here, they've recently changed their results page. I'm still getting used to it. But you can do a quick narrow by date. You would just pick what years you wanted here. If you do any of these and click on these, you do have to click on the search button again over here. I didn't know that until yesterday. But this is a quick way to do your English, your human studies, whatever your limits are. My search history here is in the middle. And then these are the filters. These are all very much safer to use than the PubMed because everything here is indexed the same way and very extensively. So you can limit by age. I like that it tells you how many articles are in each group. I like this one too. It tells you how many it pulled from each source. So 219 of these were Embase exclusives. 162 were also in Medline. I should say Embase also has Medline inside of it as well. Some are preprints. So I like that to just kind of see where my information is coming from. The other one that's good to use is the publication types. So if you're looking for review articles, you can grab them here. It doesn't separate out systematic reviews. They count all reviews together. If you're looking for a specific drug name, you could find it here. It's very useful. Lots of good filters in Embase. So that pretty much shows what I wanted to show you. Would have 500 here. You would be able to again filter by years or dates if you wanted in Embase. Okay, so I think that's the end of my demo. The last thing I want to talk about is using those limits and filters. So just a few warnings. Be careful not to overuse them, especially in PubMed, because you might eliminate relevant articles. Embase just does a lot more extensive indexing, so I use them much more heavily in Embase. You may find if you get too many articles that you might need to limit your search to only the title, abstract, and keyword fields in Embase. And it's easy to do that. You can figure it out on the Embase, or you can ask me. Again, only those Medline articles have the filters in PubMed, and generally do not use the free full text filter because you'll lose access to our wonderful collection. So just a few key takeaways. If you're doing a literature review, you're going to be wanting searching PubMed and Embase to get cover the majority of the biomedical literature. That query translator and tool in Embase really makes it easy to do that. So I strongly recommend using that. Always search with a combination of subject headings and keywords to fully cover the variety of articles that are in the databases. Ask a librarian for assistance. We can help you with your literature review. We can help you find terms and build your search. We're happy to do that. If you're doing a systematic or scoping review, it's really essential that you incorporate us to do that exhaustive search that is very technically challenging. And always remember, the scholarly databases are going to give you your highest quality literature and are the best search tools to use for research. Here's some resources, our library webpage, how to get to PubMed and Embase. Here's that new resource guide I talked about for searching PubMed. So if you have questions about creating the MyNCBI account, there's a page there. And then there's some external links to PubMed training and Embase user guide if you want to learn more about those tools. And that's it. My contact information is here. There's a survey for today's presentation you can fill out. And if you want to learn more about other information sessions that we have and about other library resources, I encourage you to sign up for our email list so that you find out about our activities. And with that, I will stop sharing and answer any questions.